All right, looks like we're live to Facebook. Thank you everyone who is who has joined us in the Zoom call and who is joining us on our Facebook feed. This is our very last, sadly, our very last In Our Own Voice Summer Showcase event happening that has been happening for the last many Thursdays, where folks have had a chance to see our really excellent In Our Own Voice presenters share their stories and talk about their experiences. So we're really grateful to everybody who's participated throughout the course of these events and who's joining us this evening. Just as a reminder for folks on the Zoom call, this event is being recorded and streamed to Facebook, so hi to everyone joining us there. This event is hosted by the National Alliance on Mental Illness of New York City. My name's Clara and I am the In Our Own Voice coordinator. So I'm going to be doing a quick introduction and then I'm going to be turning it over to our presenters. As a reminder for folks on the Zoom call, I'm just going to be keeping everybody muted. Please feel free to use the chat to say hello, introduce yourselves, and we hope to get a good conversation going. I'm going to say a little bit about the services that NAMI-NYC offers, and then I'm going to turn it over to our speakers. So if you have any questions about anything that you hear this evening, you can email me at ckiley@naminyc.org. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat as well. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions or comments after the presentation. So again, this event is hosted by the National Alliance on Mental Illness of New York City. Our mission is to provide support, education, and advocacy for all individuals and families impacted by mental illness. So that means that we provide free classes and support groups and other services. Now we're offering a lot of those remotely, but we offer those for anybody who's either dealing with a mental health issue or who's supporting somebody in their life who's dealing with a mental health issue, whether it's a family member or a friend or somebody else in your life. There's a lot of information about our services available through our helpline, which is open Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then Fridays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. during the summer. That phone number is 212-684-3264. So please feel free to reach out to us if you need support, if you have questions about our services. Again, we're offering a lot of different support groups and other services remotely. So yeah, we really hope that people can utilize those to get the support that they need. With that, I am going to go ahead. Oh, and for folks that may be watching via Facebook, if you would like to ask questions or make comments, you can write a comment on the Facebook live stream, and that will be forwarded back to me, and I can ask the presenters and share on the call. So please feel free to do that. So with that, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to our presenters. So Sonja, it's all you.
Hi, everyone. So my name's Sonja. Just a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Australia. I have in my background here a map of Australia, which is an Aboriginal art, which I think is quite beautiful. Just my homage to Australia. So I've been in New York for 12 years, and I love New York. One thing I love about New Yorkers, they think what they say and they say what they think. They're very straightforward, and I appreciate that. Whereas Australians tend to be more polite and say something nice to your face and then say what they really think when you turn your back, which I think is incredibly rude. But I much appreciate New Yorkers' straightforwardness because that's more like me. And I've been able to be myself more in the time I've been here than I ever was in my whole life in Australia. But whilst I was there, I worked in film and television. I worked in television broadcast. So whatever you saw on your screen at home, I was one of the last people to see it before before it ended up on your screen. So if I made a mistake, millions of people saw it. Yay. No pressure. That's kind of what I was doing when before I moved here. And then when I came to New York, I guess I got to find like a whole new way of being and living. I know everyone thinks Australian and Americans are sort of similar. I mean, there are similarities because we're Western cultures, but it's still quite different, especially to New York anyway. But yeah, so I've actually really loved being in New York. I do miss being able to go to the like really beautiful beaches, which are pretty much everywhere you go in Australia. Because one of my goals one day is to learn how to surf, because I feel like as an Australian, I'm obligated to do so. Hopefully I'll get to do that one day. But anyway, other things, I'm writing a book at the moment, which is really exciting. And I also love doing this, NAMI presentations for Inner Voice. Probably one of the best things I've ever done in my life. It's therapeutic, it's exciting, it's interesting, and I get to meet the most interesting people I've ever met. So this is probably one of my favorite things I've ever done. So that's a little bit about me. Go over to Zack.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Zack. I'm 27 years old. I was born in New Jersey, but I grew up in a combination of US, Israel, and London. My dad moved around a lot, and so myself and my two older brothers had the experience of following him around. I'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm a freelance filmmaker. My hobbies include fitness, photography, sports. I'm really happy that sports are back. Safely, obviously, but really happy about that. I have a lot of hobbies that I've worked on during COVID, including I've always played piano, but I've really taken to it a lot more. I've become quite the avid knitter that I will also talk about a little more. So that's just a little bit about me. How this is going to work is Sonja and I are going to go through 3 sections, starting with what happened, where each of us will talk to you a little bit about our background, our stories, how we got here. In between each section, we're going to open up the floor if anyone has any questions or comments or would like to share. And we're more than happy to answer those questions. After we tell you what happened, we're going to move on to what helps. We're going to talk about coping skills or habits, those sorts of things that have really helped us individually. And then we're going to move on to what's next and kind of what the future holds for us. And we'd love to hear from you. So first, we're going to start with Sonja, who's going to tell you a little bit about what happened.
Okay, thank you, Zack. So what happened with me? I was born into an abusive family. My father was the child of abuse also, and rather than dealing with it, he had that very much mindset of the time, just forget about it and move on. And that I don't think worked very well for him, because he then passed it on to his own children. I was the main focus. I'm the middle child of 3 girls, and I'm, as I guess, I don't know, middle child syndrome. I was the different one, and I seemed to be his main focus. My little sister, a little bit. My older sister, he didn't touch her at all. I have theories on why this is, but I was the main one. And it was a very scary way to grow up. People have this idea that the scary part is when it's happening, but for me, it was almost scarier the in-between time, because I know it's going to happen, and just the waiting and anticipating was like, it was torturous. And at least when it finally happened, I could just sort of breathe again and go, it's done now, and then reset again. And so that's kind of how I was in that constant cycle. It was a cycle of fear. And my mother used to tell me, when it was over, and I would, cry, she would say, oh, stop it, it's over, it's done, stop. So like, that's the only problem, that was it, it's done now. She has ideas that she tried to help me, but I don't remember that. But I mean, she may have, I don't know. But if she did, it didn't do anything, because it continued into, the last time I was 18 years old when it happened. So whatever she was doing really wasn't helping. But I also started to realize as I've gotten older and I look back that if my mother's telling me, you know, there's something wrong with you and you're the problem, then she's probably saying the same thing to other people. Because I would try to tell people and no one would listen to me. No one would listen to anything I said. And I got treated quite badly at school. I was bullied at school, also by teachers and also by other children's parents. So I'm guessing that they also saw what was happening and, you know, they either looked away or they just participated in their own way. I mean, to me, looking away is also participating in it. If you're not helping, you're also hurting. And so it was very strange and very confusing and very scary. And the weirdest thing is that I actually liked me. I thought I was all right. And that was added to the confusion. I didn't understand why this was happening. Because I thought I was, you know, I didn't see anything wrong with me at all and anything strange about me at all. I thought I was perfectly fine. And it was, yeah, that was one of the weirdest, I think that was almost the hardest part about it rather than actually the whole thing that other people were doing. But my way of getting through it was that I would achieve things. I would test myself and I challenge myself on my skills. I was quite athletic. So I would spend hours doing these, you know, exciting, dangerous things on the monkey bars in the playground by myself. You know, this thing called the death drop that you sit on the top of the bar and you fly backwards without any hands. You fly the other way in the air and you let go and you land on your feet, supposedly. And I did that for hours, you know, just to show myself that I could do things. And I ran in athletics day when we had one day of, you know, running, sprinting, long distance, high jump, triple jump, all that sort of stuff. I would join in every single activity and win ribbons and say, look, you know, I did that. Other people saw me do that. I'm good at stuff, you know, and I would display them so that I could look at them and see them and go, to remind myself that I was good at stuff. And I played basketball and I won trophies and, you know, all these things to show myself that I wasn't whoever this person was that they were trying to tell me I was. And then, you know, so I was young, and so I had all this hope that once I turned 18, that all of this would be left behind. I'd be an adult, and off I'd go into the world, and all that wouldn't come with me. I would be fine. Everything would be great. I'd be taking the world by storm, you know. And so I actually came to the US for the first time when I was 17. I paid for the trip myself. That felt really good. I felt like that was the biggest goal I'd achieved. So when I got back to Australia, I ended up going to university and studying performance because I decided clearly my only issue is that I don't know how to make friends. So I'm going to fix that by doing performance. It's going to help me come out of my shell and learn how to interact with people. You know, I thought, you know, if I'm a social outcast and a weirdo, performance arts is where all the other social outcasts and weirdos go. You know, maybe they're my peoples and I'll be able to make some friends and everything will be great. So for 3 years, I didn't get bullied. So I thought, yes, 3 years of my life so far, you know, that was the bar I had. But I still felt, you know, not like I'd learned what I needed to learn yet. But I thought I was on the right path. And then I started working in television. I don't know if anyone's ever worked in television before, but it's like being in high school. And I found myself for the first time in a decade being bullied and, you know, picked on every day all over again. And I found myself becoming that frightened little kid again. And it was worse than the first time because now I'm an adult. Now I've outgrown that. That's supposed to have been left behind, but here I am in it all again. Why is this happening again? And I had to start to admit to myself that I hadn't learned what I was supposed to learn. I hadn't left it behind. And maybe the damage that was done was things that I didn't know yet. And I dealt with it the same way I dealt with it before, just kept pushing forward and achieving things and feeling good and thinking that that's going to fix it. I didn't learn anything really. And then things got really bad working in television. I ended up having to quit. And then I came to New York. So I thought that'll fix everything. I'll literally leave it all behind and I'll come to New York and it'll be great. But the problem is wherever you go, whatever the problem, it comes with you, because I found myself, and I basically recreated the relationships with new people in America that I'd had with the people in Australia, and I still didn't know I was doing it. And that's kind of where I'll leave it for now. We'll move on to Zack, and he can tell you about what happened with him.
Thank you, Sonja. So like I said in my introduction, I grew up in 3 different countries, which is very tough. I don't know if any of you have ever had to pack up your things and move, but the first one started at the age of 6. So right in the middle of 1st grade, my dad said it was time to, pack up, say goodbye to your friends, and we're moving on to the next country. And it's especially hard to be the new kid, especially when you're changing languages. It was really hard to make friends. And then I had my 2 older brothers who always kept me sane. Although when you have 2 older brothers who are each 18 months apart, you definitely have your fair share of fighting. But that actually made us very strong. And every time we moved countries, one thing that always kept me sane was we had a great DVD collection. So we had a lot of good movies, TV shows. There's the 3 Stooges over my shoulder here. So during my childhood, that was what made me happy. So just when I made friends, it was time to pack up onto the next country. My childhood very much consisted of being the new kid. My friend first diagnosis was ADHD when I was in 7th grade. So if I found everything up, I was having trouble focusing. I couldn't really make friends. So that seemed to make sense. So after that, then we moved to England for about 1.5 years. Sports actually were huge for me. I played a lot of soccer. Although I didn't speak the language, sports were always something that kind of blended and always allowed kids to hang out together. But, after
Did Zack disappear? Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me?
We can't see. Oh. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I guess those are the pitfalls of Zooms. So that was pretty much what my childhood looked like. It was just a series of making friends, and then it was time to move away. So things seemed to, the ship kind of seemed to right itself when we came back to the US, and then I went to high school. However, the cycle seemed to reset since every time I went to one of these countries, I got bullied. Not only was I the new kid, but I was very short. So I was this tiny little new kid, very easy to pick on. So then I went to college, and I felt, hey, I'm here with my friends. I'm going to feel good until I moved to New York in 2013, and that's when my mental health, along with the life experiences, were starting to collide. And I remember I was walking up 5th Avenue. I moved here to the city without any friends, and I was sort of ruminating about that and thinking, oh, you're so lonely. And I always had a very negative stream of thoughts. And so I was ruminating about that. And I remember walking up 5th Ave, and I was looking up at the Empire State Building, and it just kind of seemed like the Empire State Building was starting to move like this. And it felt like the sidewalk was starting to slip, and I fell over into one of those benches, and I was experiencing what I didn't know at the time was my first panic attack. And so then my depression kind of seemed to take the forefront and the main focus in my life. I saw all my relationships start to be affected by that. The girl that I was dating for at this time about 5 years was starting to feel that my mental health was slipping, and she was starting to get on her way out. But then I got a really great opportunity when I was at film school, and a friend of mine said, hey, do you want to come out to India and direct this film? I said, that's one of the greatest experiences ever. I was so happy. And at the same time, I was also incredibly depressed and anxious, self-loathing. And I kind of hit I hit rock bottom on a hotel bathroom floor in India. I was self-harming, and I had this moment where I decided I needed to get help. And so when I got home, I was being medicated for depression and anxiety, and yet nothing was helping. Nothing felt better. I felt I was stupid and I was broken and defective. And I mean, if all these doctors and medications couldn't fix me, then I must just be broken, and I was suicidal. And I got a call on my 24th birthday, funny enough, from my therapist. And he said, you know what, I think we finally figured this out. I don't think it's just depression or anxiety. I think you have depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder. So I was like, oh, great. That sounds like a good holy trinity. But that was really the moment when I felt as if, okay, you know what, maybe it's not my fault. Maybe it's just something chemical. So that was actually the beginning of the healing. So that's a brief story of what happened with Sonja and I. I'm going to open up the floor and see if anyone has any questions or comments about those sections before we move on.
Feel free to either, oh,
Hi.
yeah.
Can you hear me? I'm Akiva.
Yeah.
I have a question. I want to know, I was also bullied and I'm also bipolar. I want to know how much, with what Zack was saying, I'm saying, is bullying playing a factor in our bipolar diagnosis?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's this debate of, you know, nature versus nurture, or I'm not sure chemically how much those things can affect. What I can say is that for sure it had a huge effect on my my self-esteem. The narrative in my head, the constant monologue was always, I just seemed to be repeating whatever people said. And so since a lot of things are being said were negative, that was just what I said. And it wasn't until I got older and started to learn to kind of check those thoughts and fact check them and be like, oh, like, is that true? You know, oh, like, why are you saying that? It's not until you take a step back that you realize that those aren't necessarily your words or your thoughts that you're saying to yourself. You're repeating things that are being said to you. And whether that's bullying or it's parents or it's however that is, those, as a kid, you just kind of, or I just kind of learned. And so it wasn't for a while that I was able to take a step back and realize that I was just repeating that. So for me, it was huge.
Yeah, I was given a diagnosis of bipolar disorder at some point in time also, but I just didn't agree with it because I grew up in an abusive environment and I was really bullied. How else was I supposed to come out of that? You know, a perfectly healthy, balanced person. You know, I was going to come out with these extreme behavioral issues. So as I've gotten older, though, I've started to realize that, you know, the people that did that to me, they were the ones who were sick, and they gave their sickness to me. I don't see myself as being, I didn't start out that way. It was given to me, and then it made me sick at some point in time. So, yeah, that's how I look at it. And definitely bullying and abuse, I'd say that is the reason why I was the way I was. There was no other reason for it. You know. Yeah, it's frightening. It's a frightening way to grow up. I think bullying is difficult for adults to deal with, let alone children who have no idea why or what's going on.
It's a good question. Thanks, Akiva.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions before we move on to the next section?
Again, if anyone's watching via Facebook, please feel free to leave a comment or a question in the chat. It will be, or sorry, in the on the stream. That'll be sent over to us.
So we go on to what helped? Okay, so what helped? So I was, just before I came to New York in Australia, I was very, very bad way. I ended up in a drink driving accident, but I don't even remember drinking or driving. so that I had already blacked out from whatever was happening, and it was just too overwhelming, and I shut down and I blacked out, and then I went and did those things and ended up in jail. And then I came to New York a year later, and 5 years after I arrived in New York, I found myself on the roof of a building, and I realized that one more step, literally, that would be the last step. So I took a step backwards and had to be like brutally honest with myself. You know, I mean, I can say till I'm blue in the face that my family and I'm being bullied and all that, that's the problem, that's what caused all of this, which is true, but it's not helping me anymore. It's actually hurting me. And I'm an adult now, and I've come all the way to the other side of the world, and I've literally recreated all of it myself. I found a whole new lot of people to bully me and hurt me. So, and I did that on my own. I can't point at anyone else. And I had to be responsible for that. And that was really hard. And when I first started doing it, I was like, why are you doing this? This is a horrible thing to have to do and admit. But after a while, I realized that the reason I was doing it was because I was trying to take responsibility for myself and for my life, so that I was responsible for myself now, so that I could be responsible for myself for what's going to happen, you know, tomorrow. And I can't do that until I own it. So that's kind of what I had to do. And it took me a couple of years of like brutal honesty to be able to really, you know, get that and understand that and get that, penetrate all the crap that I held on to in my head from what I, you know, believed growing up. It took, I literally would scream at myself in my head. I had like a drill sergeant in my head yelling like demands at me, you know, swear. It's very colorful language. And I was thinking if people could hear what was going on in my head right now, they would think I was crazy, but I thought that was hilarious. And it really, like, after a while, I started to realize too, even though that felt horrible, it also meant that I was helping myself, which made a little bit of a shift in the way I was thinking, because I was always hurting myself, and now I'm actually trying to help myself, which started to make a little bit difference. I was trying to, basically, I was a broken person that had been broken by how I'd been treated, and instead of just staying that broken person, I was now taking each of those pieces myself and consciously breaking them down piece by piece on my own, and looking at each piece and deciding whether that should stay or should I get rid of that, or can it be turned into, like, can I look at it differently, and then it could actually work instead of, you know, work for me instead of hurting me. I just basically very consciously broke myself down for like 5 years, just very, you know, meticulously analyzing each part of me to see what was worth keeping and what needed to be thrown away. And then I started to put them back together again slowly and put them where they belonged. And, you know, I'm basically trying to rebuild myself into a healthier adult, which takes a lot of effort and a lot of hard work. And it can actually be quite tediously boring at times, which I find the hardest times, because it's like monotonous and it seems to be going on forever and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. But then I stop and I look back where I was, you know, 5 years ago, and I go, oh no, I've actually come a long, long way since then. So, but yeah, just a series of doing that. Also learning it's okay to have fun and enjoy it myself. I'm allowed to do that now. Like, I literally jump on a scooter and go to the park and play in the sprinklers with children, and I'm 45 years old. And it's delightful. I freaking love it. You know, things like doing stuff, I have the freedom to just do that. You know, just being like that and just laugh. I laugh at myself all the time. I mean, I walk around with my foot in my mouth. I accidentally offend people all the time. So I've learned how to make that into something funny instead of something horrible. So that's really good. I enjoy that. I love making people laugh. I make myself laugh all the time. I'm sure I still look like a crazy person walking down the street. So I'm literally just suddenly will start laughing without realizing it. Yeah, and just the freedom to be that way and to be myself and not be afraid of what other people think. And if anyone's going to attack me in any way, yeah, it makes the world a difference. So this is a little bit about what I've done for what helps. Over to you, Zack.
Yeah, those are great. Yeah, I mean, much of what you said there, I very much connect with. This sort of rebuilding. When I got back to the States, my therapist made me just promise to be back in her office in 1 year. And that for me was like the start of, you have to promise you're going to be here in a year. You're going to commit 1 year to life. And that kind of begun the process of like, okay, I need to rewire the way that my mind works. It's not right. And so I started a 7-month dialectical behavioral therapy course, including group therapy. And for those of you who don't know, it's a therapy which mainly focuses on skills and kind of like Sonja said, just rewiring, retraining behaviors. They're the kind of connection between thoughts, behaviors, and feelings. And so once you kind of understand that they're connected and that you can control behaviors, that's the best place to start. And then thoughts can kind of come along with that. So like you said, Sonja, it's very easy to be mean to yourself. It's very hard to actually take the time and want to do better and be nicer. So that's something I'm still working on. So it's taken me years. So along with that, it's, I mean, what helps is taking my meds. You know, it sounds like a simple thing, but that's something that's important. Knowing that I can open up to people, do things like this, talk to my friends has taken off an enormous weight. I grew up thinking that it's just kind of me against the world, and whatever I'm feeling is what I'm feeling, and whatever I'm saying to myself in my head is the truth. And once I was able to just kind of let go of some of that and know that I can lean on people, was so helpful to me. I also love comedy. I try to do something that makes me laugh every day. I like stand-up comedy or TV shows, movies. That stuff makes me so happy. It always has. Three Stooges, I like to wake up every day and look at Curly. I play lots of music. Fitness is super important to me. The connection of, you know, feeling good, looking good. You know, like when I go for a run, just that feeling of having the heart pump, you know, sweating, all that stuff is just like, it has this, not only does it have the physical effects, but you also feel like you can sweat out issues. And knowing that when I'm feeling a certain way, I can just do push-ups. It doesn't really matter, you know, where you are. You can always just kind of do that or do jumping jacks or go for a walk, and learning those skills to kind of moderate the way you feel. Cause you know, I got hit with moods left and right. And I've become quite the expert knitter in my quarantine. I'll show you a little bit. This is a sweater vest that I made. So finding things that make me happy and doing them every day. And that's the things that really help me. So I'd love to open up to some questions or comments, maybe see what helps other people.
Yeah, there's a question, there's a comment in the chat, which I can read, but if folks in the Zoom call would like to share, I think what helps for them, that's a great place to start.
I'm reading it. I really need glasses. I'm telling you, I just have eyesight better than 2020, and now I can't read very well anymore.
Well, I can also start with, so yeah, for folks that maybe can't see, it says, as an EMDR trauma therapist, I've diagnosed many young people with stories similar to yours. A big thing is getting stable and getting appropriate meds, and then starting to reprocess and desensitize the negative beliefs that come from the mental illness traumatic experiences. With proper meds and a good therapist that can challenge the negative beliefs. So can you talk maybe a little bit more about like getting out of those negative thought processes and thought spirals, and kind of how you were able to do that?
Yeah. So I think one of the things I did, because I think even from the beginning, I never totally 100% bought into the negative things people were saying to me and about me. I still had my own idea of myself in my head. The only thing was that as I got older, that got smaller and smaller and smaller, and what other people were saying got bigger and bigger and bigger. But it's still, my own ideas never went away. So to help just sort of eradicate what other people had said to me as I got older, I got stronger. I started questioning everything, because the main thing people would tell me was that I was stupid, and worthless and a loser and all that sort of fun stuff. So I would look back and I think, what have you done in your life, said or done, that's so stupid that justifies this pain that you've lived through for decades? Like, I would challenge myself to try to think of something that I've said or done that's warranted these decades of this pain. And I could never come up with anything that would warrant, all that energy gone into all that horrible stuff. And I did. I tried really hard. I really racked my brain to go through decades of life to try to find something that, made sense. And I really couldn't find anything. So I started to realize how ridiculous that idea was, that I was really that stupid. And I didn't want to go straight to, you're really smart, you're really intelligent, because that's just another leap in the other direction. It's going to fall as flat as, I'm not going to go anywhere. So I started going, you're not that stupid. That was a good step for me. I thought that was a great step. And then I started doing things like, when I could hear myself going down that road again, that, oh, you're so stupid, you deserve this road, I would start that voice, that yelling at myself in my head, what is stupid? Doing this, that's what's stupid. If you do that, you know exactly where you're going to go. That's stupid. You're not stupid, but doing that is stupid. So that was a way of separating that word from me as well, by saying, I'm not actually stupid, but I am about to do something stupid. So it's not me to say, it's the person, it's the actions that I'm taking. And I started kind of like almost mocking myself for, going to do these routine behaviors that happen to be very damaging. But just now that I know how bad they are, I'm still going to do them. And I was almost like, laughing at myself for it. And doing those things, because it was a different approach than what I'd been doing, it sort of woke myself up in some way. It detached it from me enough for me to really get a perspective from it and go look at it and go, yeah, that is stupid. Come on. And it slowly over, it took a long time, but over time it started to really help me separate myself from that further, which is, perspective to me is everything. And you can't have that until you start to change and move. Doesn't even matter if it's a little change and a little move, any amount of perspective, you can't see where you are and who you are when you're in it. It's much easier when you start to move out of it a little bit, even just a little.
For sure, it helps. It helps for sure to even just write it down, because for me it was so normal and so common that I didn't think anything of it. It wasn't until I started writing it down that I was like, these are horrible things, and I would not say these things about anyone. So why do I have to sit here and subject myself to that? And it's important to fact check it and be like, well, is that true? Are you this terrible person? Is this, no, it's just, so I think trying to treat yourself the way that you would treat others, or something that I heard, I forget who said it, but basically talk to yourself like you're talking to your grandmother, just super nice. There's no reason to be mean. And it sounds so silly, but why wouldn't you treat yourself like you would treat someone you love? And for me, that was such a difficult thing. So exactly like you said, Sonja, you just have to cut it out and just take a step back from it and realize that, it's not healthy. It's not positive. It doesn't help. And it can be really damaging.
I like what you said about why would you talk to yourself that way when you wouldn't talk to somebody else that way? It's kind of similar in the opposite direction when you allow your family. Well, I allowed my family to treat me in a way that if that was somebody else, they'd be some person I vaguely remember from 20 years ago, because I wouldn't want them around anymore. But family, they get to do it for as long as they want to. It's what they should, on all honesty, be treated like just another person. They shouldn't get special favors, special rules. Because yeah, I would never let anyone else treat me that way, especially as an adult.
Right.
It's just weird people. All right, should we go to the what's next, or
Yeah.
are there more questions from somewhere else? Other source, or
I think there's a 516 number. I'm not sure if you unmuted yourself to ask a question or just by accident. If you'd like to ask your question, please feel free to unmute yourself again. I think that might have been accidental though. Okay, yes, I think we can head on to the next section.
Okay, what's next? So I agree with Zack. Writing stuff down is massive help. It's another way of separating yourself from it, because you get it out of your head and out in the world. I like talking to myself. Even I do it in public. I speak out loud to myself. Again, another reason why people probably think I'm crazy. But what it does is, I don't know if you've ever had a question in your mind and you're not sure about it, or something just doesn't seem right, and then you say it out loud and it just sounds better and more clear. That's kind of what I do, and that's what writing is also like for me. And I promised myself when I was like 7 years old that I was going to go through stuff that I had no control over, and that I would one day write a book about it, so that at least it becomes something more than, or something other than what it was. I can turn it into something useful instead of it being this useless crap that it was. And along the way, I would say that I've started writing a lot more about my recovery and the things that I did to get better, as opposed to what I went through, because I feel like a lot of people have written about, abusive childhoods and not so much about their recovery. So I'm writing more about that, and I find it more interesting, more exciting, and a lot more fun, to be perfectly honest. I much prefer me now than me back then anyway. So I'm doing that, and I'm also, I'd say, doing inner own voice is probably the best thing that I ever did, as I said earlier. It's great therapy. Because to me, being able to talk to people, just have a conversation, is the greatest thing. I mean, it's great to have people to pay to talk to, professional people. I understand the need for that, but for me personally, I much prefer this. Talking to other people who also know how to have a conversation is great. Since this pandemic isolation thing has happened, a friend of mine who's another presenter, her and I do morning walks twice a week, and we just talk about this stuff and just everything, and it's very open conversation, which is not something I've really been able to have with just a one-on-one. I find that quite hard to find, and I think it took her a minute to get comfortable with it. To me, it was a breeze, because it's normal. But now we're, 3 months later or whatever, it's become quite wonderful and something to look forward to, and we're getting up and walking. And it's another person to talk to other than just the same people that I live with. And just going to the sprinklers with the kids in the park and riding the scooter. I feel like I'm on a magic broomstick. Just fun stuff. I don't know, stuff that just gets everything out of me and, free. Wonderful. Anyway, that's me.
Yeah. What's next for me? I think about this a lot, and it sounds kind of depressing until I explain it, but the idea that there's no finish line when it comes to mental health, and it kind of sounds daunting, but the reality is I won't ever get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm good, I'm cured, easy sailing from here on out. So just being aware of that and knowing that it's just going to be something that I have to work on. Every day is going to be different. Some days are good, some days are bad. I had plenty of days. Yesterday was just not a good day for me, and that's fine. That just is what it is, and on those days, I do all the things that make me happy, and I really have to put in extra effort. And then I wake up some days and I really appreciate it. And I say, okay, it feels good to be alive today. And one thing about the COVID, or the elephant that's hopefully not in the room, is that it's made things a lot harder in terms of dealing with mental health. It's hard to interact with people. Human beings really need to see people and talk and interact. The positive thing is that I feel as if mental health is really being discussed on more of an outward basis. I feel like a lot of people are now talking about how difficult it is for them to be isolated and how much they need people around them. And so that's a very positive thing. So every day, doing the things I need to do, I make sure I still have to be healthy from my physical and mental health. So that gives me a lot to focus on. And this, helping others, being able to talk to other people, having this conversation is so important. And these are just the things that I wished that someone was talking about when I was going through my worst spirals. And people probably were talking about it. It wasn't happening around me, or I didn't know where to find it. And so I hope we can keep talking about this stuff. And that's what's next. Thank you so much for listening. We've still got some time. We're happy to take some more questions or comments from Facebook, or if people here on the Zoom have any more questions.
You know, one of the things that I've learned as well, that I taught myself, that it's okay to be sad about sad things, you know, and allow myself to feel my feelings when I feel them, because that was one of the problems with abuse, was that I wasn't allowed to feel. If I cried, I got into trouble. If I, you know, laughed at the wrong time, I got yelled at. You know, every time I tried to express my feelings, I would get yelled at. And so I unlearned how to feel, basically. And so I had to relearn how to feel my feelings when I feel them, instead of having these inappropriate outbursts. Because they pent up and then they suddenly explode. I'm learning how to feel. And being sad is fine. Like, I'm never going to look back on an abusive childhood and go, that's not sad anymore. It's always going to be sad. You know, if the day I stop thinking that's sad is the day I'll really be worried about myself.
I mean, that's one thing that I love about watching movies, is that you can pick a movie that will help you feel the way you're feeling. If I'm feeling sad, sometimes it's nice to watch a sad movie and just get it out, you know, just flush it out of the system. I mean, I like watching horror movies at night when the lights are off, and to me, like, that makes me feel alive again. That, like, feeling fear is like the same thing that people feel when they go on like a ride or a roller coaster. It's like, if I feel numb sometimes, it's nice to put on a horror movie and feel the heart race again. And I mean, I use movies to help me feel like that sometimes, or it's so important to watch movies that make you laugh and has a huge impact on your day.
Yeah, it's funny how I think a lot of us will watch a comedy movie to feel like laughing, and that's like an accepted thing to do. But if you feel sad and you can't cry, you know, watching a sad movie to help you cry, people are like a little bit hush-hush about that one. Like, but it's the exact same thing.
It's the exact same thing. And it's you know.
But you're not allowed to cry, Zach. That's the problem. You're allowed to laugh, but you're not allowed to cry.
I still do it, I guess. Oh, well.
No,
it's not in trouble.
You're allowed to cry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually very unhealthy not to.
For sure.
Hi, if I could just step in. I just want to go back to something Zack said. I think both what we're talking about in mental health is physical health, because I neglected, because of depression, I couldn't get up and move so much. And now, as soon as it abated somewhat, I started to embrace yoga and meditation and walking. And that's also been a side effect for me of the COVID, of the quarantine, because the panic attacks were coming and I needed a way to work it out. I never had panic attacks until like beginning April. And I know it's from the COVID, but that yoga is a game changer. It has been a game changer. So anybody listening, if you can just try it. There's YouTube videos with Adrienne, and she does one for anxiety and stress, and it's only 28 minutes long, and it's beginner, and you could go at your own pace. And I've been doing that now for about 6 weeks, and I feel a big change. I think that sweating it out, like you said, you are just right on the right course there. And I just discovered it, so I'm just, thank goodness.
Yeah,
Great.
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I love yoga. It's one of the great things that you can do from just right in front of your TV. That requires no skill to as much skill as you want. You can find anything on YouTube. And yeah, I mean, a lot of yoga is just kind of sitting with being with yourself and not, we're so busy sometimes and running around or we're keeping ourselves busy. Sometimes it's important to just kind of sit with those feelings or those thoughts and then sweat and work through it. Walks are also, I mean, I was just out for a walk like an hour ago. I was feeling a little anxious and I just went for a walk and just walked around the block a few times, and it's so simple, but it makes such a big difference.
They're the best. Simple things are the best. Something you can do. That's what I think is part of the problem is people make appointments and join classes and all these other things, extra things to do to try to get better. But the best things are the things you can just do right where you stand. Where you don't have to rely on anybody or anything else. It's just so simple. I learned the art of the silent scream. I taught myself that when I was working in television because it was so stressful that you can't just scream at your job. So I'd go up to the 4th floor, go out onto the balcony and just go. The feeling, like the physicality of it is much more necessary than the sound. And it's like, oh my God, it felt so great. But I wanted to say something else too, a little bit different. People talk about friends on social media, like they're fake friends, it's not real, all this sort of stuff. Which I can understand where that comes from, but from a person who grew up having no friends and being completely alone, but I grew up without the internet. If I had been able to have the internet and have people online to talk to, I could tell you that would have made a world of difference to me. Instead of feeling so alone and so isolated, my whole world would have opened up. And there's so many mental health groups on Facebook that it's ridiculous. You could go talk to all sorts of people and you'd be able to then reach out to someone on the other side of the world who's going through what you're going through. So, I think it depends on how you utilize social media as to what you get out of it. I think I've met a lot of people through social media that I talk to regularly, and they're very real people. So I don't know. It's all in the attitude as well.
Yeah, Akiva, I wanted to commend again your yoga or just walks. I mean, when I'm depressed, or in the past when I was really depressed, it is so hard to even get out of bed. So the fact that you're able to fight through and make yourself do yoga or get up and go for a walk, it's so difficult. And so keep it up. And I always have to remind myself that I can do it. I'll wake up and be like, it's one of those days, like, you've done this before, you can do it again. Get up, go through the motions, make yourself some coffee, enjoy the coffee, and then move on from there. Try to just pile up things in your day that make you happy. And just try to, so I really commend that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a question.
Yeah.
Amy?
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Zack, when did you start hearing voices? And what do you do to feel better?
Well, my voices were negative thoughts. So I don't know if I would say I heard voices as much as I kind of just was always drowning in negative thoughts. So it was always, I just kind of had this monologue of just negativity. And I still have it. It's just something that I have to deal with every day. Like we said, it's important to break the cycle, to step away from it. It's especially using yoga or something like that. It helps you kind of take a step sideways and just see it for what it is. And it's just something that I think, like we said, walking, changing up the even just changing the scene is how I call it, of just, if you're kind of stuck in your room and you're kind of ruminating, just change the scene, stand up, go into a different room, do something else. And that for me helps just kind of break the cycle.
Yeah.
So has hearing voices been happening all your life since you were a kid?
I mean, I've always had negative thoughts as long as I can remember. And that's not something that has gone away. It's just something that I've learned to deal with. But yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily I hear voices.
Oh, okay. Would you say that this is something that has been going on since you were born?
For as long as I can remember, I've had negative thoughts.
Okay, thank you.
Hard to tell how much I was thinking when I was 4, but as long as I can remember.
There is there is Amy, just as a shout out, if that's something that you want to hear more about, there is we have a Hearing Voices support group that specifically talks about that issue that I believe is meeting tomorrow at 3:30. You can go to our calendar, NAMI-NYC.org/calendar, and get the link and the call-in information for that if that's something that you want to learn more about.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, great. June put it in the chat. There it is.
Anyone else?
Yeah. I highly recommend finding a friend to be able to have chats with, open conversations with. It's the best. Yeah.
And yeah, just thank you guys for listening. Thanks for sitting here and listening, and thanks for sharing about what you guys are going through. And hopefully we can continue the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I honestly hope that we continue to do all these sorts of things after the world resumes its normal viewing. Because I think this is actually a great thing that came out of it, is to be able to do this for everyone and have people just join in, you know, you could be from anywhere in the world and you can just join in, and it's fantastic. Like, we can have a conversation with the world. Yay!
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, one of the things that is really clear from these kinds of conversations is that so much of it is just about connection and connecting with other people in a real and genuine kind of way. And that can be through Zoom, it can be through social media, it can be, hopefully soon it will be able to be in person as well. Can be over the phone. Like, connection is really that one of the most baseline important things.
Yeah. And social media opens our world up, and we can talk, as I said, talk to people from all over the world if you want to. Like, that's how you should approach social media as a way to connect from all over the world, as opposed to this fake, superficial thing that people keep going on about. They can have their fake, superficial connections on the internet. I'm going to keep having these kinds of lives. I much prefer them, so I'm good.
Absolutely.
Clara?
Right. Yeah.
Is this the last meeting you are hosting?
That's a great question. Thank you for letting me. Thank you for that question, because yes, it is. This will be our very last summer showcase in our own voice presentation. We are going to be hoping to start it up again in the fall, but this kind of concludes the summer series. Thank you. So thank you all so much. I know many of you have joined us for many of the presentations, and you can see a few of them recorded on Facebook. So please feel free to sort of check those out, but this will be the last one. But we definitely hope that, but we thank you so much for joining us, and a big thank you to Sonja and Zack for closing us out in such style. But we hope that you will continue to participate in the other programs that we have, and that this has been helpful and enjoyable for everyone who's participated. So yeah, big thank you to Sonja and Zack for closing us out, and for all of our audience members for joining us. We appreciate you. We appreciate your witnessing and sharing and questioning and everything. I see a bunch of beautiful thank yous in the chat as well. So
Thanks for listening.
so
Thank
with
you, Zack.
that,
Everyone for coming.
Thank you, Sonja.
so with that, have a good night, everyone. Take care of yourselves, stay well, and see you soon.
Clara,
Clara.
thank you.
All right.
Good
Bye,
night.
everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.